Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's Sonder Social. I'm so excited that you all have tuned in. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Malika. I will be your facilitator for this evening or late afternoon, depending on where you're based. And I just wanted to kind of welcome new folks. If you're new to Sonder Social, make sure to let us know. We love to see new faces. And for those of you that are returning, a huge welcome back. We absolutely love just connecting with each and every one of you, and we're so excited that you're all here. And just a few reminders before we dive in. Make sure to set your chat to everyone. Sometimes Zoom defaults it to hosts and panelists, and we want to make sure that you are an active contributor in the chat and everyone can see your lovely words, because that will be kind of the main form of communication throughout the social. So just wanted to welcome anyone new. Tracy, huge welcome. I see Claire is new. I see a few, so huge welcome to the new faces, and we'll go ahead and get started. All right. Okay, we're going to start with talking about this month's theme. So thinking about what replenish means, I know it's really hot here in Santa Barbara, California, so I have a nice little cup of water by me. But when I think of replenish, I think of, like how I physically replenish myself. My mind immediately gravitated towards how I replenish myself physically. So when I am, feeling hungry, I nourish myself by eating delicious food. When I'm feeling really thirsty, I hydrate myself by drinking a cold cup of water. And when I'm really, really tired, I tend to make sure I give myself some time to either take a quick 15-minute power nap or sleep early that evening to make sure that I'm well rested. Obviously, I'm not perfect. It's always a variable. It's sometimes hard to do the sleeping, eating, and drinking water. But just trying to be conscious of it and making sure I, support myself physically. But when I thought about when I read this quote, it's actually on page 3 of our Silk and Sonder journals. There was a quote in there that really made me think of replenish in a different way. And I'll read the quote. It's on the slide, but basically it says, Eleanor Brown said, rest and self-care are so important. When you take time to replenish your spirit, it allows you to serve others from the overflow. You cannot serve from an empty vessel, especially that last part. You cannot serve from an empty vessel. So as we dive into replenish and we kind of get really vulnerable with ourselves and really kind of dive a little bit deeper into this concept of replenish, we can really start to think about what drains us, what's emptying our cup, and really identify what those are. And then we'll transition into kind of how we can flip it and how we can figure out how we can incorporate things that do fill our cup and start curating mechanisms to incorporate in our daily lives to place that emphasis on replenishing ourselves so that we can feel just whole and fulfilled. So really keep that in mind, as like replenish doesn't always have to be a physical attribute. It can also be a very emotional attribute, which we'll dive into a little bit later on. But thank you so much for kind of being here. We'll kind of go into the agenda. So for the agenda, we'll we'll go through a replenish activity. Then it's actually flipped. We're going to go through the replenish activity on page 16, and then we'll go into our replenishment exercise on page 15, and then we'll close social and lead you to the rest of your weekend. All right, so we'll go into the replenish activity. So when we think of replenish, I know I immediately think of a nice cup of water. And I want you to really visualize replenish for this activity with that water glass. So it can be in your journals, turn to a blank page in your notebook, or get a blank piece of paper and start drawing that glass and put some water in that glass. And in that glass, in the liquid section, start writing some affirmations. And on my next slide, I'll show you kind of a list of some affirmations that, if you're struggling to think of a few, you can definitely draw inspiration, and write down those affirmations in kind of that liquid, in that water. And then think about yourself drinking that glass of water and really sipping that water. You're really quenched and you're really thirsty and you're sipping that water filled with all of those affirmations, and they become a part of you. So that is going to be our replenish activity. So I'll show you a list of some affirmations that that will help you kind of get started. Feel free to maybe take a screenshot of this, or we'll probably keep the other slide up for the duration, but I'll give a few seconds to just maybe capture this if you want to refer to this, or just type in the chat if you want me to flip over to the slide, and I'll give everyone some time for the replenish activity. All right. Thank you all for sharing what affirmations you're putting into your water glass. I really, really love reading all of your affirmations. They're so beautiful and so creative. And it's just like, I love this group because there's nothing more powerful than just like saying, yeah, I'm amazing. Pamela wrote, I'm a masterpiece. And I'm like, yeah, you are. I love it. I absolutely love how we all uplift each other. And I love that you're all recognizing your worth. I think that's really, really beautiful. And I encourage you to keep going. Like, just because it doesn't fit in the water glass, maybe this is like a start of an activity that you'll do maybe for the rest of the month. I really like this activity. And I think what I'm going to do is convert one of my blank pages into a giant water glass with like the water at the top and just put a ton of affirmations in there because it's always fun. Yes, make it a picture. I love it, Katie. Think bigger. It doesn't have to be a little glass. So thank you all so much for sharing your affirmations. And I want you to keep that in mind as we dive into the replenishment activities. So we'll go into the replenishment activity on page 16. So we're doing page 16 first. And this is when we get a little vulnerable. And we're going to be kind of unpacking what is draining us. So we'll start with the first section, and then I'll give everyone some time, and then we'll move into the bottom section. So for the first section here, I want everyone to spend a few minutes and write down a list of things that maybe drain you or make you feel a little bit heavy. And there's no reason to hold back. Be as vulnerable as you can with yourself. And just remember that no one's reading this. This is totally yours. This is your personal list. And if you feel comfortable, you're welcome to type in the chat and share with us. But if you don't feel comfortable, that's totally fine. And for those of us that are struggling to think of, what's draining us, what's holding us back, I've included some questions on the slide that can help us kind of spin our wheels and, help us identify what is energy draining. And some of these questions include what prevents you from spending time the way you want to on your own terms? Is there anything holding you back? What takes the most time out of your day that isn't productive for your happiness or emotional well-being? What is preventing you from doing your hobbies? What responsibilities do you bear that drain your energy? And I'm going to give everyone some time for this one to really identify kind of what those aspects are. I already see the chat kind of, having some great ideas of what's really draining people. And Elizabeth said, baby crying for hours on end. Of course, that must be really, really difficult. Those little, everything that comes to mind, just write it down. If there's not enough lines, write in the margins. Just really make this time your own and start writing down kind of a list of what is energy draining. And then we'll regroup and feel free to share with us. Yep, I did. I was talking on mute, everyone. Um, Thank you. Anyways, I was just saying that I want to thank you all for being so vulnerable and sharing with us what's draining you. It really gives everyone kind of a chance to feel heard. And I saw a lot of patterns. I saw a lot of people tend to feel like perfectionism is, something that definitely drains you because it's, you just feel like you're not good enough, and that feeling and that pressure is never, not healthy in the long run. And then sometimes it's external, sometimes it's traffic. Vienna said it was SoCal traffic. I can definitely relate to that one. um just I used to live in LA and it was very difficult. And also just in being having really hot weather, or just maybe it's a lot of family responsibilities or pet responsibilities. Maybe it's just being surrounded by people that maybe don't understand you. Maybe it's some insecurities that we're dealing with. Maybe it's just day-to-day responsibilities that just weigh you down. It's going to work, it's paying those bills, it's everything that we're supposed to do. But at the end of the day, if you don't make time for yourself and to enjoy what you want to do with your life, it definitely takes a toll. um, so thank you all for being so authentic and vulnerable and raw, with yourselves, because it's important to identify, what is draining us so that we can figure out, okay, now we know that what's draining us. How do we figure out how we can transition into what we can do to fill our cup? So I also invite you at the bottom of the first section, to circle your top three that really deplete the joy the most and the energy the most, just so that you kind of have that in the back of your mind, so that maybe we can figure out some way for you, if you're ever in that circumstance or that happens again, we can figure out ways to kind of make time for yourself to just incorporate more joy and more energy into your life. So now we'll move on to the bottom section of this page. So for this section, it's really about what changes. It's about that transition period that I was alluding to earlier. So, what changes can you implement that will transition these areas into a more positive and joyful energy? So I have some examples here. So these are like more mechanisms, more tools that we could do to really kind of make that time for positive, joyful energy. But it can really be anything. So, for example, when I thought about what was energy draining for me, one of the things I wrote down was being stuck in LA traffic. And back when I would go to the office, I was commuting every day for work and it was bumper to bumper traffic. It was horrible. And you think that you're used to it, but you just never get used to it. So it really is was really hard on me. But then I tried to shift my mindset a little bit and use that time as almost like my meditation. So it would be kind of my time to disconnect from technology, just not respond to my coworkers who were constantly pinging me to do work. It was like my excuse to listen to music that I loved or a podcast that I wanted to listen to, and really be present with myself, and observing kind of what's around me. And I also used to commute a lot on airplanes pre-pandemic for work. I was flying every single week, and I would also use that time in the airplane to do the same thing, just really disconnect from all of the external stuff and just really be present with myself and use that time to really reconnect with myself, and finding joy in that moment. So it's just kind of a different way to interpret it. But I also have some different ways that we could do it. So whether it be blocking time in your calendar, maybe you want to focus your evenings on doing a few things for yourself. Maybe doing it, start small twice a week. And then maybe if time permits, you can incorporate it more. Maybe 1 hour is enough. Maybe it's a 3 hour block, whatever works for your schedule. Maybe you want to do some hobbies. And then another idea is in your journal itself, add it to your weekly to-dos until you can cross it off. Maybe just keep adding it to your to-do list on your weekly setups or adding it as your habit or activity. And then another example is since we're pretty new for the month, if you haven't set up your sleep tracker yet, maybe you can repurpose that tracker as like a joy energy tracker. And instead of marking how rested you feel, you can say, how much joy do I feel? And circle that number. And so there's different ways you can measure it, but I'll give everyone some time to kind of think through what changes they'll implement to really transition into that joyful energy. And feel free to share with us in the chat what you're writing down. With these socials, it's always fun to see how everyone interprets it and how everyone writes these prompts, because I know I definitely get a lot of ideas just reading through yours. So I'll give everyone some time and we'll regroup in a few minutes. All right. Thank you all for sharing what you wrote for this prompt. I was reading through for the past few minutes, and I think, you all have such great ideas for dealing with certain situations, dealing with certain stressors in our lives. I saw a little piece, a little discussion about like unhappy coworkers. I've been there. I think it's interesting because, in a corporate world or wherever we work, it is a little soul sucking at times, you're just in that grind that day to day and there's very little variability. So as a result, some people, especially if they've been there for a long time, tend to be really bitter and not really supportive, not really as positive as maybe they once were. And as a result, we don't like to be, in that company. And all I can say is I feel like the best way to handle those types of situations is really, like, taking a step back and then maybe just kind of allowing some boundaries and some separation because it's not easy to be in those types of situations. But thank you all for kind of sharing kind of how you're transitioning, how you can kind of incorporate different ways to maybe say, like, I think Janelle had a great idea, if you have to do so much for your kids, maybe giving them some ownership and delegating some of the chores, if they're at that age where they can handle it or are able to, maybe kind of offloading some of your plate onto people that will help, and with it's easier when you're distributing the workload, of course. So definitely great ideas. Nona said, making the to-do list instead of it being like a draining list, making it a to-do list so you get to feel like celebrated and excited and joyful every time you cross it off. So I love that. Or like giving yourself credit for everything that you do. That's a great way to repurpose the to-do list, make it a to-do list. But yeah, so those are great, all great ideas. Thank you all for kind of sharing with us your ways of transitioning into a more positive, joyful energy after we've kind of been really vulnerable with ourselves. And we'll move on to the next or the page earlier, which is the replenishment activity on page 15. Or sorry, replenishment exercise on page 15. And I'll read out the prompt and then I'll give everyone a lot of time to fill out this section because it is a whole page. And you can really get descriptive with it. And I'll give everyone some free time to just write and write and write. So think about a time you felt completely replenished, recharged, refueled, a time when you felt full. If you can't think of a time, think of a future moment in which you can feel this way. Where are you? Who are you with? What are you doing? Think about the five senses. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you taste? What do you smell? What do you touch? Try to be as specific as possible. Really try to visualize this moment, and it helps to kind of close your eyes if you need to. And when thinking about this moment, maybe it's not a single moment for you. Maybe there wasn't a moment that you can turn to where you felt like you were fully replenished. Maybe it's a series of moments in your life. Maybe there's different times where you felt a little bit more whole again, a little bit more full. It doesn't have to be a singular moment. And I think that's really important to remember. It can be like an aggregation of all of those moments that really kind of peeled back the layers and made you feel a little bit more, sorry, filled up your cup a little bit and made you feel more replenished. So it doesn't have to be a singular moment. I wanted to share a little anecdote from how I interpreted this prompt. It was actually really easy for me because I just came back from my sister's wedding. And it was truly just a celebration of love and life. And it was actually the person who started Silk and Sonder, my older sister, Neha, who got married. And given us Silk and Sonder, there was a lot of Silk and Sonder chatter throughout the weekend. I don't think she would be who she is without Silk and Sonder. So huge shout out to all of you. But it was just a real special weekend. And it allowed me to reconnect with my own culture, which I kind of forget in my day to day. There's just so much that's beautiful about the Indian culture. And I don't really have those moments very often just being here in America and all of my extended family living far, far away. But there was just so much to be celebrated: the food, the outfits, the henna, all the colors of the outfits, all the singing and the dancing and the music. It was just so festive, and it really, really shifted my mindset completely. I was really, it was hard these past few years, as it's been hard for a lot of us. But this was kind of like that moment where I felt like full again. I felt like I was a kid that could really experience joy to the fullest extent. And it's very rare to have those moments as an adult. So it really, really kind of filled up my cup for sure. I was on a high off, even though I didn't have any sleep this past weekend. I was operating with pure adrenaline. So it was definitely a replenishing moment for me. But I'll give everyone some time to write through the replenishment exercise. I'm seeing in the chat. Yes, I'll definitely pass along the message. And I'll give everyone some time and we'll regroup in a few minutes. All right. Thank you all for kind of sharing with us what you wrote down, all of your replenishment moments in your life, whether it was one big moment or whether it was a culmination of a few. I really loved just I think I wanted to echo what someone just wrote in the chat, even if they didn't write in their journal for during the social, just being here and witnessing kind of the discussion that was going on in the chat and how supportive all are of one another. It's just really, really beautiful to see. And I know some of these exercises can be a little bit more vulnerable than we thought. And, especially we started off really, really strong with figuring out what's depleting us and then trying to flip it into kind of what makes us feel whole. And whether it was a past moment, Nona had a great idea. If you're not feeling like you're able to kind of come up with those moments, make it future focused. Maybe like what can you do to feel replenished again? And maybe write down all of those activities that you can do for yourself. So really there's so many different ways you can make this page your own. And I'm so happy that if you didn't finish it, at least you started it here. So thank you all for putting in the work and giving yourself that time. And with we're 2 minutes over, so thank you for bearing with me. We wanted to give you the QR code for the Sonder app, Silk and Sonder app. Make sure to kind of take this, make sure to download the app. That's where we all are. Everyone in this group is in Sonder Club. You're automatically a part of Sonder Club when you get a subscription. So for those of you who are new to Sonder Socials, make sure to download the app, get in that Sonder Club. You'll see me, you'll see Katie, you'll see a lot of other facilitators, along with a lot of familiar attendees that you saw here tonight. So make sure to drop in and say hello and share with us what you wrote down. Maybe share if you're feeling like you don't want to share your journal pages because they're a little bit more intimate. Maybe share that glass that you wrote with all of your affirmations. I would love, love, love to see that and see how you kind of wrote those down and what affirmations you wrote down. So definitely be sure to share that. And then here I have a few more QR codes for you all. At the bottom right, we have a QR code for all the YouTube videos that we have. So all of those include all of the Sonder Social recordings historically that we've done. So if you ever want to look back on a social, that's where you'll go. This is a like kind of a YouTube page for all of us. So make sure to check that out if you want to look at other socials that we've done in the past. This one will be up in a few days if you want to reference this one. And then at the middle up there is the QR code for the survey. Make sure to fill out that survey. We love to kind of hear what we can do to best tailor our program to really fit you. These Sonder socials aren't for anything besides serving the Sonder fam. So make sure to kind of take that form, fill it out, tell us what you want to see more of, what you want to see less of, any ideas you have, maybe that you want to see in terms of programming. Definitely drop it in that survey, and we'll definitely take a look. Just for reference, we added on a lot more socials. We changed some of the timings of these socials to better serve, some of the Sonder fam schedules. So we're constantly kind of looking at that feedback and making sure we're accounting for, the trends that we're seeing. So make sure to fill that out. And thank you so much once again for all the wonderful discussion that you all did in the chat today. It was really beautiful to see. And I'm just so happy. I'm feeling so good about my weekend now that I've spent it with all of you. So I'm so excited to go in with a great mindset now that I've hung out with all of you. So thank you so much for making me feel a little bit better after a stressful work week, to say the least. So thank you all, and I'll see you at the very next social. Have a great weekend, everybody.